3 months had passed since the council meeting on Nexus Prime. The great alien fleets had gathered at the Kepler Junction, a place where several hyperspace routes met like roads at a crossroads. It was here that they would make their stand, against the Void Swarm. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the human ship Soul's Pride, watching the massive alien fleet through the view screen. It was an incredible sight. Thousands of vessels spread across space like glittering stars. The Threx battle cruisers were huge, each one the size of a small moon with weapon systems that could crack planets. The luminary ships looked like flowing, liquid light, beautiful and deadly. The Corvani vessels appeared to be carved from solid rock, ancient and seemingly indestructible. "Impressive," said Lieutenant Han from his position at the sensor station. "I count over 5,000 ships total. All keeping their distance from us," noted Commander Seo, who was watching the tactical display. The human ships, just 12 vessels according to alien intelligence, were positioned far from the main fleet, exactly where they had been told to stay. Captain Lee nodded. "They still think we're here to watch and learn. Let them keep thinking that." The Soul's Pride was equipped with the most advanced sensors humanity had ever built, though the aliens didn't know that. To their instruments, it looked like any other primitive human vessel. They had no idea that Lee could see and hear everything happening across the entire battle zone. "Captain," Lieutenant Han called out. "Long-range sensors are picking up movement. The swarm is coming." On the main screen, space itself seemed to ripple and twist. Then the Void Swarm emerged from hyperspace like a living nightmare. Their ships were not built, they were grown. Massive organic vessels that looked like they were made of black flesh and bone. Tentacles the size of city blocks writhed from their hulls. Strange lights pulsed beneath their skin like infected veins. The alien fleet commanders immediately began giving orders. Counselor Vexithara's voice crackled across the communication channels, her mandibles clicking with excitement. "All Threxy vessels prepare plasma bombardment. Show these parasites the power of civilization." The Threx battle cruisers moved forward, their weapons charging with bright blue energy. When they fired, space lit up like a second sun. Massive plasma bolts, each one powerful enough to destroy a city, streaked toward the swarm vessels. The bolts hit their targets and exploded in brilliant flashes. For a moment, it looked like the attack had worked. Then the light faded, and the swarm ships were still there. Their organic hulls had changed color, now glowing with the same blue energy as the plasma weapons. The attacks had done no damage at all. "Impossible." Vexthara's voice carried shock and confusion. "Our weapons should have vaporized them." Zephyrins. Lightform pulsed rapidly with alarm. "The creatures are adapting. They're absorbing our energy signatures and making them part of themselves." The swarm ships began to move, flowing through space like living things. They were not fast by normal standards, but they moved with purpose and terrible intelligence. Tentacle ships reached out toward the nearest alien vessels, and whatever they touched began to change. A luminary energy ship was caught by writhing tendrils. Instead of being crushed, it was drained. The bright light that made up its hull grew dim, then went out completely. The energy that had been the ship was now part of the swarm creature that had touched it. Speaker Gorth's stone voice boomed across the communications. "Corvani fleet, advance! Our hulls cannot be consumed by these parasites." The massive stone ships moved forward like floating mountains. Their weapons were different from the others, gravity cannons that could twist space itself, crushing anything in their path. The gravitational waves hit the swarm vessels and bent them into impossible shapes. But again, the swarm adapted. The organic ships stretched and flowed like liquid, letting the gravity waves pass through them without damage. Then they reformed, now somehow immune to the space-bending weapons. Captain Lee watched in fascination as the battle unfolded. "They're not just adapting," he said to his crew. "They're learning. Every attack teaches them something new." The alien fleet began to panic. Species that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years were seeing their greatest weapons become useless. The Aquari torpedo swarms were absorbed and turned into part of the swarm's own attack biology. The Scani fighter wings were caught in web-like nets that grew from the enemy ships their pilots consumed along with their vessels. "All ships, fall back to secondary positions," Speaker Gorth commanded. But his stone voice now carried fear. Regroup and analyze their weaknesses. But the swarm had no intention of letting them escape. The organic vessels began to spawn smaller creatures, living fighters that moved like schools of hungry fish. They swarmed over the retreating alien, ships eating through hulls and consuming everything inside. Commander Seo was recording everything on the Soul's Pride. The swarm isn't just destroying the ships, she noted. They're integrating the technology. Look at that. On the screen, they could see a swarm vessel that had consumed a Threx cruiser. Parts of the organic ship now glowed with the same blue plasma energy. The creature was literally eating the alien technology and making it part of itself. The battle became a massacre. The proud alien fleet that had numbered over 5,000 ships was being torn apart piece by piece. Every weapon they tried was turned against them. Every tactic they used was learned and countered within minutes. Warlord, Kresh of the Hegemony, tried one desperate attack, sending his metal skeleton warriors in boarding pods to fight the swarm from inside. The pods penetrated the organic hulls, and for a moment it seemed like the plan might work. Then the hulls sealed themselves, trapping the warriors inside. The swarm ships began to glow with new metal elements, having absorbed the boarding parties completely. This is impossible. Vexithara's voice was now pure panic. They're adapting faster than we can change tactics. How do we fight an enemy that becomes stronger with every attack? Captain Lee had to admit it was an interesting question. The swarm was unlike anything he had studied in human military academies. They were not just another alien species with different technology. They were something that existed to consume and adapt, turning their enemies' strengths into their own. But as he watched the alien fleet being destroyed, Lee was not worried. Humanity had faced adaptive enemies before, even if not on this scale. They had learned to fight opponents who could change their tactics, who could learn from their mistakes. The secret was not to rely on a single strategy or weapon. The secret was to be more adaptable than your enemy. Lieutenant Han, Lee said calmly. Send a coded message to Admiral Kwan. Tell him the swarm's capabilities match our intelligence reports. They adapt to direct confrontation but show predictable patterns in their learning cycle. Message sent, sir. On the main screen, the alien fleet continued to fall apart. Ships that had seemed invincible were being consumed like insects in a spider's web. The greatest military alliance in galactic history was being defeated by an enemy they didn't understand. But in the distance, the small human fleet watched and waited. They recorded everything, analyzed every swarm adaptation, noted every weakness in the enemy's response patterns. While the aliens panicked and died, the humans learned, and on Earth, hidden fleets prepared for deployment. Weapons that had been designed specifically for adaptive enemies were loaded onto ships that had never appeared on any alien sensor screen. Humanity's real war machine remained invisible, waiting for the moment when the galaxy would finally be ready to see what humans could really do. The swarm had won this battle, but they had also revealed their secrets to observers who knew how to use such information. The aliens had underestimated both the enemy they faced and the allies they had dismissed. Soon, both mistakes would become very expensive. 6 months had passed since the disaster at Kepler Junction, and the galaxy was dying. The Void Swarm had consumed 40% of known space, turning entire star systems into feeding grounds for their ever-growing fleet. Where once proud civilizations had built cities that reached toward the stars, now only empty darkness remained. The emergency meeting of what remained of the Galactic Council took place in a hidden bunker, deep inside a small moon orbiting a dying star. The great crystal spires of Nexus Prime were gone, consumed by the swarm 3 weeks ago. The floating conference table was replaced by a simple metal circle surrounded by emergency lighting. Admiral Kwan entered the bunker and almost didn't recognize the beings he had met months earlier. Counselor Vexithara's once shiny shell was cracked and scarred, her left mandible broken from a battle she had barely survived. Her voice, when she spoke, had lost all its arrogant clicking and now carried only desperation. Admiral Kwan, she said, her words translated by the damaged universal communicator. Thank you for coming. We need to discuss new strategies. Zephyron's light form was barely visible, flickering weakly like a candle in the wind. The proud energy being who had once pulsed with bright colors now could barely maintain his physical shape. When he communicated, his thoughts came in broken fragments, the luminary, most gone, absorbed by the swarm, energy drained. We fade. Speaker Gorath still looked like living stone, but stress fractures ran across his massive frame like spider webs. His earthquake voice had become hollow and tired. The Corvani worlds burn, he rumbled. Our children turned to feeding grounds, our great cities ground to dust. Around the table sat the survivors of dozens of once mighty civilizations. The fish-like Aquari delegation was now just 3 individuals, instead of 30. The bird-like Scani had lost their homeworld and most of their colonies. Even the militaristic hegemony, with their walking metal skeletons, had been reduced to a handful of refugee fleets. Captain Yoon and Commander Park flanked Admiral Kwan as he took his seat. They had watched the galaxy burn from their observation posts, recording every battle and every defeat. The aliens had thrown everything they had at the swarm and accomplished nothing except feeding their enemies' growth. The situation is grave, announced the AI moderator, though its voice now carried static from damaged systems. Current projections show complete galactic consumption within 18 months if current trends continue. Counselor Vexithara turned, her broken head toward the humans. For the first time in their species' history, a Threx was looking to mammals for help. Admiral, she began, then stopped. The words seemed to stick in her throat. We may have underestimated your people's potential contributions. Zephyrin's weak light pulsed in agreement. Human tactics, different approach, might succeed where technology failed. Speaker Gorath's stone face showed something that might have been shame. We spoke poorly of your species at our first meeting. Perhaps we were wrong. Other voices around the table joined in. The proud species that had dismissed humanity as primitive children were now begging for help. They offered humanity full membership in the Galactic Council, advanced technology and trade agreements that would have seemed impossible months ago. Admiral Kwan listened to their desperate pleas, with the same calm expression he had worn during their first meeting. His hands remained folded on the table, his voice steady and professional. We appreciate the Council's recognition of humanity's potential, he said carefully. However, this represents a significant commitment for our species. Earth's leadership will need time to consider such a momentous decision. Time? Vexithara's voice cracked with panic. Admiral, we may not have time. The swarm advances on 7 fronts. They will reach the core worlds within months. Which is precisely why we cannot make hasty decisions, Captain Yoon interjected smoothly. Humanity's limited resources must be deployed carefully to have any meaningful impact. The word limited made several aliens twitch. They still believed humanity had only a handful of ships, maybe a few dozen at most. The idea of human limited resources was laughable to civilizations that had once commanded millions of vessels, but they were too desperate to laugh now. What would Earth need to make this decision? Asked Ambassador Thel of the Aquari, his fish eyes wide with fear. Detailed intelligence on the swarm's current positions and capabilities, Admiral Kwan replied. Full access to battle records from all engagements, technical specifications of all weapons that have been attempted against them. Done, Speaker Gorath rumbled immediately. Anything else? Coordination authority for any human forces deployed. We cannot risk our people under commanders who do not understand human tactics. This caused some murmurs around the table, but desperation won out over pride. Agreed, Vexithara clicked weakly. And time to properly prepare our forces. Even working at maximum capacity, it will take Earth several weeks to organize our contribution to this effort. Several aliens started to protest that they didn't have weeks, but Admiral Kwan raised his hand. You asked for our help, he said quietly. These are our terms. Humanity will not throw away lives in a poorly planned attack. The meeting continued for hours, but the outcome was decided. The aliens would provide everything the humans requested and wait for Earth's response. They had no other choice. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Commander Park overheard whispered conversations between alien survivors. Humans are our only hope now, one equerry was saying to another. What can they possibly do that we could not? Replied his companion. I don't know, but they're all that's left. In their transport ship heading back toward human space, the three humans finally allowed themselves to show emotion. They really think we're going to save them with a few dozen ships, Captain Yoon said, shaking her head in disbelief. It's almost sad, Commander Park added. These civilizations ruled the galaxy for millions of years and now they're begging us for help. Admiral Kwan activated his secure communicator. Control, this is Kwan. The aliens have formally requested military assistance. They're offering full tactical authority and complete intelligence sharing. The response from Earth came immediately. Understood, Admiral. How long until deployment? I told them several weeks. That should give us time to position the fleets properly. Copy that. Admiral, the President has authorized Protocol 7. Full deployment is now active. Kwan smiled. Understood, Control. Inform all fleet commanders that the masquerade is ending. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity really built. Commander Park was already updating her files. Sir, I'm compiling the complete tactical analysis of swarm capabilities. Based on their adaptation patterns, I believe our doctrine will be extremely effective. Good. Make sure every ship commander gets a copy. This is what we trained for. Their ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying the news that would change everything. Behind them, the broken remnants of galactic civilization waited for salvation from a species they had dismissed as primitive. They had no idea that humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario since their first contact with alien life. While the galaxy's advanced species had grown soft and complacent, humans had spent decades building the most formidable war machine in galactic history. The aliens thought they were getting help from a minor species with limited resources. What they were about to get was a demonstration of what happened when a paranoid, war-loving species had 50 years to prepare for the worst possible threat. The Void Swarm had conquered every military force in the galaxy. They had adapted to every weapon, countered every tactic, absorbed every fleet sent against them. But they had never faced humans, and humans had never fought for anything less than the survival of civilization itself. The real war was about to begin. Admiral Kwan stood in the command center buried 3 miles beneath the Pacific Ocean on Earth. The massive chamber hummed with activity as hundreds of officers worked at stations that monitored humanity's true military strength. Holographic SUA displays showed star maps, fleet positions, and battle plans that no alien had ever seen. Director Cho approached the Admiral's command station, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. She carried a data pad that contained numbers the Galactic Council could never have imagined. Final deployment reports, Admiral, she said, handing him the pad. All fleets are in position and ready for Phase 2 deployment. Kwan studied the numbers and allowed himself a small smile. 12,417 warships, each one hidden in the dark spaces between stars, invisible to alien sensors, waiting for orders. While the galaxy thought humanity had perhaps 50 vessels total, the truth was that Earth commanded one of the largest military forces in galactic history. Fleet Admiral Shin entered the command center from the secure elevator. His uniform bore the insignia of Deep Space Command, a military branch that officially didn't exist. Behind him came Strategic Coordinator An, whose job was to plan battles against enemies that could adapt to any weapon. Admiral, Shin saluted. All deep space assets are reporting ready. The stealth fields are holding perfectly. Alien intelligence still estimates human fleet strength at 37 vessels. Excellent work, Admiral Shin. How long to full deployment once we give the, order? 18 hours for primary battle groups. 72 hours for complete fleet assembly. The logistics network is ready to support extended operations in any sector of the galaxy. Strategic Coordinator An activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked areas consumed by the Void Swarm. Yellow zones showed where the remaining alien forces were making desperate stands. Blue zones indicated human observation posts. Based on our analysis of swarm behavior patterns, An began, their adaptation ability has limitations. They learn quickly from direct confrontation, but they struggle with rapid tactical changes. and multi-vector attacks. Explain, Quan said. The aliens kept using the same strategies over and over. Big ships with big guns firing from long range. When that failed, they tried different big guns. The swarm adapted to each weapon type and absorbed the technology. On manipulated the display to show battle recordings from Kepler Junction and dozens of other engagements. But look at their response time. They need approximately 47 seconds to begin adaptation to a new weapon type. Full immunity takes between 3 to 8 minutes depending on complexity. Director Cho nodded. Which means rapid weapon cycling could be effective. Hit them with everything in 40-second intervals, never giving them time to fully adapt to any single system. Exactly, On confirmed. But more importantly, they seem to have trouble with non-direct combat. They adapt to weapons that attack them, but they're slower to counter tactics that don't involve shooting at them directly. Fleet Admiral Shin brought up another display showing human ship designs. This is why our vessels were built for flexibility. Every human ship carries multiple weapon systems that can be swapped out in combat. We can change our entire attack pattern in minutes, not months. Quan studied the tactical analysis. Humanity's approach to warfare had always been different from the aliens. Where other species built specialized ships for specific roles, humans built adaptable platforms that could handle multiple missions. Where aliens relied on superior technology, humans planned for fighting enemies with better equipment. There's something else, Strategic Coordinator On said. The swarm shows predictable behavior when faced with simultaneous attacks from multiple directions. Their adaptation ability seems to have a processing limit. Hit them with too many different stimuli at once and they become confused. How confused? Quan asked. Confused enough to make mistakes. During the battle at Vega Station, when 3 different alien fleets attacked from different angles with different weapons, the swarm took nearly 20 minutes to respond effectively. That's our window. Director Cho activated her communicator. All department heads report to command. Initiate full deployment protocol. Within minutes, the command center filled with senior officers from every branch of humanity's secret military, intelligence chiefs who had spent decades studying alien technology, logistics commanders who had built supply networks across hundreds of star systems, Marine generals who had trained their troops to fight in zero gravity against enemies that could absorb their weapons. People, Admiral Quan addressed the room. Today we dropped the pretense. For 50 years we've let the galaxy think we were weak and primitive. We've hidden our true capabilities while building the most advanced military force in known space. He activated the main display, showing the current galactic situation. The Void Swarm has accomplished something we never thought possible. They've united every alien species in the galaxy against a common threat. More importantly, they've proven that traditional alien military doctrine is completely ineffective against adaptive enemies. Fleet Admiral Shin stepped forward. Our advantages are clear. We have more ships than any surviving alien fleet. Our technology incorporates the best of dozens of alien civilizations, improved by human engineering. Our tactics are specifically designed for fighting adaptive enemies. But our greatest advantage, Strategic Coordinator On added, is that no one knows we exist. The swarm has no data on human military capabilities. They can't adapt to weapons they've never encountered, or tactics they've never seen. Director, Cho brought up deployment schedules. First wave ships are already moving into position around swarm-controlled systems. Second and third waves will follow once we see how they respond to initial contact. Admiral Quan looked around the room at faces he had worked with for years. These people had dedicated their lives to preparing for a threat the aliens had never imagined. They had built weapons in secret, trained fleets in hidden bases, and planned for wars that hopefully would never come. Now that war was here, and it was worse than anything they had prepared for. Questions? Quan asked. Sir, said General Kim, commander of the Marine Corps. What about civilian evacuation protocols? If this goes badly, the swarm will know about Earth. If this goes badly, General, civilian evacuation won't matter. This is humanity's one chance to stop the swarm before they consume the entire galaxy. We don't get a second opportunity. Rules of engagement? Asked Admiral Park from the Stealth Division. Full authorization. Use every weapon system, every tactical doctrine, every piece of technology we've developed. Hold nothing back. The aliens asked for our help, and we're going to give them everything we have. Strategic Coordinator On activated a countdown timer on the main display. 18 hours until first contact. All departments begin final preparations. As the officers dispersed to their duties, Admiral Kwan remained at his command station. Director Cho stayed with him, watching the displays that showed hidden human fleets moving toward their targets. "Any regrets about keeping this secret for so long?" she asked. Kwan shook his head. "The aliens never would have accepted our help if they knew how powerful we really were. They would have seen us as a threat instead of salvation. This was the only way, and if we fail, then the galaxy dies and humanity dies with it. But we won't fail, we can't afford to." On the displays around them, 12,000 human warships moved through the darkness of space toward their destiny. The galaxy had dismissed them as primitive and weak. The Void Swarm had never encountered them at all. In 18 hours, both groups would learn the truth about what humanity had become during their decades of supposed weakness. The real war was about to begin, and for the first time since the swarm had appeared, someone was going to surprise them. The galaxy had misjudged humanity completely. Soon that mistake would either save civilization or destroy it entirely. The great crystal spires of Nexus Prime reached toward the purple sky like frozen lightning. Inside the tallest tower, beings from across the galaxy sat around a massive circular table that seemed to float in the air. The Galactic Council was meeting, and today they would discuss the greatest threat their civilization had ever faced. Admiral Kwan walked slowly into the council chamber. His black uniform looked plain and simple compared to the bright colors and strange shapes around him. Behind him came Captain Yoon, a woman with sharp eyes who never missed anything. Commander Park followed last, her hand resting on her datapad as she studied every alien in the room. The humans took their seats in the section marked for New Species. Kwan looked around at the other council members. The Threks were giant bug-like creatures with shiny shells and clicking mouths. Their leader, Counselor Vexthera, was the size of a small building, and her shell gleamed like polished metal. When she spoke, her voice sounded like breaking glass. Near the Threks sat the Luminari, beings made of pure light that shifted and changed like living rainbows. Their representative, Zephyron, pulsed with bright colors when he communicated. The ancient Corvani looked like they were carved from living stone, their massive forms sitting perfectly still. Speaker Gorath was so big that the floor shook slightly when he moved. "The Void Swarm approaches," announced the council's AI moderator. Its voice echoed through the chamber without emotion. 17 systems have gone dark in the past month. All attempts at communication have failed. A hologram appeared above the table showing a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked where the swarm had been. Yellow dots showed where they were now. The pattern was clear. They were moving toward the center of the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. Counselor Vexthera clicked her mandibles together, a sound like breaking bones. "The swarm must be stopped before they reach our core worlds. My people will provide 500 battle cruisers." Zephyrin flared bright blue. "The Luminari will contribute 300 energy vessels. Our power weapons can destroy entire fleets." Speaker Gorath's voice rumbled like an earthquake. "The Corvani offered 200 stone ships. Nothing in the galaxy can break our hulls." Other species around the table made their own offers. The fish-like Aquari would send their torpedo fleets. The bird-like Scani promised their swift attack wings. Soon, thousands of ships were promised to fight the swarm. Admiral Kwan raised his hand. The room fell silent, though not out of respect. Most of the aliens were curious to hear what the primitive humans would say. "The Human Federation offers our full military support," Kwan said in his calm voice. "We have ships and weapons that could help in this fight." Counselor Vexithera's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "How generous of the mammals. Tell us, Admiral, how many ships can your young species provide?" "We can discuss numbers later," Kwan replied. "What matters is that we all work together against this threat." Zephyrin pulsed with yellow light, which the humans' translators turned into amused thoughts. Surely you cannot expect your crude metal boxes to survive against the swarm? Your species has only had faster-than-light travel for 50 years. Our ships may surprise you, Captain Yoon said quietly. Speaker Gorath leaned forward, his stone face showing no expression. Child species, you do not understand what we face. The swarm consumes technology. They eat energy, they dissolve matter itself. Your small fleet would last perhaps minutes before being absorbed. Commander Park checked her datapad but said nothing. She had been taking notes throughout the meeting, recording every dismissive comment and insulting tone. Perhaps, said a new voice, the humans should observe from a safe distance. This came from Warlord Kresh of the Hegemony, a militaristic species that looked like walking metal skeletons. They could watch and learn how real warriors fight. Murmurs of agreement rippled around the table. The consensus was clear. Humanity was too weak and primitive to contribute anything meaningful to the fight. Admiral Kwan nodded slowly. If that is the Council's wish, we will accept an observer role. However, I request that human ships be allowed to monitor the battle zones. We may learn something that could help future operations. Granted, Speaker Gorath rumbled. Position. Your vessel's at least 10 light minutes from any engagement zone. We would not want any unfortunate accidents. The formal part of the meeting ended, but the real conversations began afterward. As delegates moved around the chamber in small groups, the humans found themselves largely ignored. When aliens did speak to them, it was with the kind of patient tone used for children. Your species shows great courage, said Ambassador Thel, of the Aquari, his fish-like head tilting sympathetically. But courage without power is just another word for suicide. We appreciate your concern, Captain Yoon replied with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Near the refreshment area, Commander Park overheard a conversation between two Threx officers. 5 ships, one was saying. The mammals have 5 ships. Total, according to our intelligence. Pathetic, the other clicked. I have more fighters in my personal squadron. Still, they seem eager to help. It's almost adorable. Park memorized their words while pretending to study the strange alien foods on display. As the meeting broke up, the human delegation prepared to leave. They walked through corridors filled with aliens who barely noticed them. The humans were just another minor species too new and weak to matter in galactic affairs. In their transport ship, the 3 humans finally spoke freely. They really think we're helpless, Captain Yoon said, shaking her head. Let them think that, Admiral Kwan replied. He activated his secure communicator with a special code that would reach Earth instantly. Control, this is Kwan. The Council has assigned us observer status. Aliens estimate human fleet at 5 vessels total. A pause, then a voice from Earth responded. Understood, Admiral. Maintain current cover. How long until they engage the swarm? 3 weeks, possibly less. They're gathering their fleets at staging points throughout the sector. Copy that. Remember, reveal nothing until Protocol 7 is authorized. Commander Park was already working on her report. Sir, I recorded everything. The Threx think we're primitives. The Luminari consider us barely evolved. The Corvani see us as children playing with toys. Good, Kwan said. The longer they underestimate us, the better. Their ship moved away from Nexus Prime, heading back toward human space. Behind them, the greatest military alliance in galactic history was forming to fight the Void Swarm. Thousands of advanced warships crewed by species that had ruled the stars for millions of years. They were certain they would win. After all, what could possibly threaten civilizations so advanced and powerful? As their ship jumped to hyperspace, Admiral Kwan smiled for the first time since the meeting began. Earth had been preparing for this day far longer than any alien could imagine. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength had always been letting others underestimate them. In the depths of space, hidden fleets waited for orders. On Earth and dozens of colony worlds, weapons factories worked around the clock. Humanity had spent decades building for war while pretending to build for peace. Soon, very soon, the galaxy would see what humans were really capable of. But not yet. For now, they would play the role of weak observers, watching and waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the truth. The Void Swarm was coming, and the aliens thought they were ready. They had no idea that the real surprise would not come from the enemy they expected, but from the allies they had dismissed. The first human ships arrived at the Andromeda staging point exactly on schedule. The surviving alien forces had gathered here for what they believed would be their final stand against the Void Swarm. Counselor Vexithara watched her sensors from the bridge of her damaged command vessel as the expected small human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 12 ships appeared on her screens, just as alien intelligence had predicted. Small, primitive-looking vessels that barely registered as military threats. Vexithara felt a mixture of hope and despair. These humans were brave to come, but what could such a tiny force accomplish? Human vessels. This is Counselor Vexithara. Welcome to the staging point. Please take position in Sector 7 as discussed. Acknowledged. Counselor, came the calm voice of Admiral Kwan. Human forces moving to assigned positions. Speaker Gorath's massive stone ship drifted nearby, its hull scarred from countless battles with the swarm. His earthquake voice rumbled across the communication channels. Admiral Kwan, are these all the ships your people could send? These are our advanced scouts? Kwan replied. The main fleet will arrive shortly. Zephyron's weak light form pulsed with confusion. Main fleet? How many ships total? You'll see. Before anyone could ask what that meant, space began to ripple around the staging point. More ships dropped out of hyperspace, then more, then hundreds more. Vexithara stared at her sensors in disbelief. The numbers kept climbing. 100 human ships, 500, 1,000, 2,000. Her damaged mandibles clicked frantically as she tried to process what she was seeing. The alien survivors watched in stunned silence as wave after wave of human warships emerged from hyperspace. These were not the small primitive vessels they expected. These were massive battle cruisers, sleek destroyers, and enormous dreadnoughts that dwarfed even the largest surviving alien ships. Impossible. Speaker Gorath's voice carried shock, for the first time in his species' history. The humans said they had limited resources. We do. Admiral Kwan's voice remained perfectly calm. This represents approximately 30% of our available military assets. 30%. If this was only 30%, then humanity commanded a fleet larger than any civilization in galactic history. The aliens had completely misjudged the species they had dismissed as primitive children. Captain Lee's ship, the Soul's Pride, had transformed. What had appeared to be a simple observation vessel was now revealed as a massive command cruiser, bristling with weapons that combined the best of alien technology with ruthless human improvements. Advanced shield systems, rapid-fire plasma cannons, and something the aliens had never seen before. Weapons that could change their entire configuration in seconds. The human fleet took position with military precision that made the alien survivors feel like amateurs. Every ship knew exactly where to go. Every formation was perfect. Every communication was crisp and professional. This was not a hastily assembled defense force. This was a war machine that had been building for decades. All human vessels, this is Admiral Kwan aboard the New Soul, came the voice from the largest ship in the fleet. The New Soul was a mobile fortress that could have served as the flagship for an entire alien armada. Begin Phase 1 deployment. Human ships spread out in a formation no alien had ever seen. Instead of the traditional battle lines that every galactic military used, they arranged themselves in complex three-dimensional patterns that seemed to make no sense. Then the Void Swarm arrived. They came in their thousands, organic ships flowing through space like living nightmares. The same creatures that had consumed every alien fleet sent against them, that had adapted to every weapon and absorbed every attack. The alien survivors prepared to watch the humans die bravely but uselessly, just like every other force that had faced the swarm. All ships, Admiral Kwan's voice carried across every communication channel. Remember your training, rapid cycling, multi-vector assault, adaptive countermeasures. Show them what humans do to enemies who think they're invincible. The battle, began unlike any engagement in galactic history. Instead of focusing their fire on single targets like the aliens had done, the human ships attacked dozens of swarm vessels simultaneously. Instead of using one type of weapon until it stopped working, they cycled through different systems every 40 seconds, never giving the swarm time to adapt. Captain Lee's task force demonstrated the first new tactic. His ships fired plasma cannons for 35 seconds, then switched to kinetic projectiles, then to energy beams, then to something that looked like controlled lightning. Each weapon system was different enough that the swarm had to start their adaptation process over with every change. But the humans were just getting started. Fleet Admiral Shin led a battle group that attacked from 6 different angles at once, each group using completely different tactics. Some ships rammed the swarm vessels at incredible speed, their reinforced hulls smashing through organic armor. Others released clouds of nanobots that ate through swarm hulls faster than they could regenerate. Strategic Coordinator An commanded a squadron of ships that didn't attack the swarm directly at all. Instead, they targeted the space around the enemy vessels, using gravity weapons to create crushing forces that the swarm couldn't adapt to because they weren't weapons in the traditional sense. The swarm tried to respond, but they couldn't keep up. Every time they started to adapt to one human tactic, the humans changed to something completely different. Every time they tried to absorb human technology, the humans switched to weapons that worked on entirely different principles. For the first time since their appearance in the galaxy, the Void Swarm was losing. "This is impossible," Vexithara whispered, watching the battle unfold on her screens. "The swarm adapts to everything. How are the humans doing this?" Director Cho's voice answered from the human command ship. "Because we spent 50 years studying every battle record in galactic history. We learned from your mistakes. We prepared for an enemy that could adapt to any single approach." "But your ships," Speaker Gorath rumbled in confusion. "Where did you get so many ships?" "Our intelligence said." "Your intelligence saw what we wanted you to see," Admiral Kwan replied. "Humanity has been preparing for this day since we first learned about the galaxy beyond our world. Every human colony, every industrial world, every secret base has been building toward this moment." The tide of battle turned decisively. Human ships swarmed over swarm vessels like pack hunters, coordinating attacks that came from multiple directions with multiple weapon types. When the swarm tried to spawn their smaller fighter creatures, human fighter squadrons were ready with tactics specifically designed to counter organic opponents. The final phase of the battle centered on the swarm's largest vessel, a massive mothership that served as their central intelligence. It was the size of a small moon and protected by hundreds of smaller ships. "All battle groups converge on primary target," Admiral Kwan commanded. "This is what we came here to do." The human fleet attacked the mothership with everything they had. Not just weapons, but tactics the swarm had never encountered. Some ships created false sensor images to confuse the enemy. Others used psychological warfare, broadcasting signals that disrupted the swarm's hive mind coordination. The killing blow came from an unexpected direction. Instead of trying to destroy the mothership with conventional weapons, the humans did something no other species had ever attempted. They boarded it. Thousands of human marines equipped with armor and weapons designed specifically for fighting inside organic vessels cut their way into the mothership's core. They didn't try to destroy it from outside where the swarm could adapt and regenerate. They attacked it from within, targeting the central nervous system that controlled the entire hive mind. When the mothership died, every swarm vessel in the battle zone simply stopped. Without their central intelligence, they became nothing more than floating biological matter. The galaxy fell silent as the last swarm ship drifted lifeless in space. Counselor Vexithara's voice, when she finally found it, was barely a whisper. You did it. The swarm is dead. This battle group is eliminated," Admiral Kwan corrected. "Our intelligence suggests there are at least 12 other major swarm concentrations throughout the galaxy. This war is far from over. But you can defeat them." Zephyrin's light form pulsed with hope for the first time in months. "You have the power to save the galaxy." "We have the power to try," Kwan replied. "But we'll need the cooperation of every surviving species. This victory was possible because we caught the swarm by surprise. They'll adapt to our tactics eventually. We need to be ready to adapt even faster. The human fleet began to spread out, heading toward the other swarm concentrations that threatened the galaxy. Behind them, they left a field of destroyed organic ships and a group of alien survivors who finally understood the truth. The galaxy had misjudged humanity completely. The species they had dismissed as primitive and weak had been secretly building the most powerful military force in galactic history. While other civilizations had grown comfortable and complacent, humans had never stopped preparing for war. The Void Swarm had made the same mistake as the aliens. They had underestimated humanity. But unlike the aliens, the Swarm wouldn't get a chance to learn from their error.